Okay, we're looking at a National Geographic article here that talks about the early Europeans and how that came about through the Proto Indo Europeans and how they migrated in and how some genetics changed. I was sent this by one of my trolls, and so I thought I'd look it over. And apparently he sent it to me like it was something bad, and things, and explain this type of thing. But well, let's just look at this. First, look at the outlandish outfit that these people wore. This kind of was the end of this type of thing, although you still see it somehow surviving in the beef eaters and the Queen's Guard there in London, of course, too. And neither one of those do you want to mess with, by the way. There are a lot of videos where people come up and they go, yeah, and try to act stupid, and they will beat the hell out of you. And if you try to fight back, they will kill you. And it's because they're guarding the palace, and you're not supposed to be playing little silly games with them. That's something that came about, I guess, in about the 50s, 40s or 50s or something, that people could try to do, and you couldn't fluster one of these guys, and then it kind of got out of hand. And I don't think people really do that too much anymore, although you get some tourists that go around and still think, duh, and you'll see them laying on the ground sometimes after it. Look at these outlandish outfits there, though, and the hats that they have, and the intricate weaving that they've done. And you can see this man here is wearing apparently an elder type of outfit, and then this man here would be probably the leader of each one, or the elder of the whole group. There's a couple of different outfits that you see in here. You can see this guy that's down here, and this one here that are wearing a blue and maroon outfit. All of them are wearing green and black striped pants, though. It's kind of neat. This is from like the early 20s or 30s. And if you'll look, the style of mustaches, let's just look at that because this is German. And one thing to note, though, you can see that this person here may be some slight different ethnicity than the rest of these people. You can tell the rest of them are very German. And as we look them at mustache styles and stuff, you can see a Hitler-style mustache here, and a small one here and here, and although a longer one here, a regular one, none, a regular looking one here, one that looks very D'Artagnan-ish, where it has the little curls on the end of it, of the elder here. But then here we have a Hitler-esque small mustache. Here we have pretty much a small one too, pretty much a small one too. No one's carrying it outside the lip, really, if you'll look. And then this one here really looks like, you could say that is Hitler himself, if you wanted to. But or perhaps even this guy here, that's right down here, has that same look, small mustache and so on. This has just the vent over the lip, and the middle part's cut out, so it's two little V's. This is two little V's. Quite a youngster here, and it seems like one of these guys down here is quite young also, but some of these others are elders. They look like they're somewhere in their mid to late 20s, some 30s. This man here could be in his 40s and 50s to this man here, but kind of an interesting photo here over on a hillside, and you can see a child looking on in the distance and some elders there too. So here's the article. Modern Europeans' genetic history starts in the Stone Age. And of course it starts even before that, but let's just look at what they say. This is a Nat Geo. Now they have gotten out of the, they even sent an article out to let everyone know that they have gotten out of the genetics type of business usually, that they don't want to ever talk about again about one race or another and stuff, because it seems very racist whenever one of them is, making rockets and flying to the moon, and the other ones are still in poverty and can't quite get out of a primitive state. And so they've decided to stop doing that. And third world countries versus first world countries and things along that line, they've decided to get out of. But this is from a little before that, and was sent to me again. Europeans is a people younger than we thought, a new study suggests. DNA recovered from ancient skeletons reveals that the genetic makeup of modern Europe was established around 4500 BC in the mid-Neolithic, or 6500 years ago. And I think that's about the right timeline for it coming in. Yeah, 6500. It's 6500 BC. I think they've done the thing where they didn't figure in that we're in the year 2000. I think I found a typo, because it should be 4500. It should be 6500 BC. So yeah, they're messing up by about 2,000 years, but that's okay. Maybe they all correct it if they don't by talking about what goes on here later. Let's see. It was done 6500 BC, and not by the first farmers who arrived in the area around 7500 years ago, or by earlier hunter-gatherers groups. Read about Earth's oldest town, and there's a town in Bulgaria that they have found that apparently is the oldest type of town. But of course, they have Catalhoyuk and all these things, and Göbekli Tepe, which doesn't have a town attached to it. It seems to be a pilgrimage site when these people migrate back and forth and stuff, and it's like a central hub situation for worship of a lot of the people around in the area. But that's another video entirely. The genetics show that something around that point caused the genetic signatures of previous populations to disappear, said Alan Cooper, director of the Australian Centre for Ancient DNA and the University of Adelaide, where the research was performed. However, we don't know what happened or why, and the mid-Neolithic has not been previously identified or a time of major change, he said. And no, I think we have found through other scientific methods, and if people would just put this all together, that there was a couple of great catastrophe type things that had happened leading it right out of the end of the last of the Ice Age, and when areas were getting a lot of meltwater and a lot of rivers that were working, and they started drying up and rivers changed and things like that. It affected India. It affected all up through this Proto-Indo-European area. It affected the Levant in areas which used to be heavy vegetated and had huge cedar forests and things in them, and then that dwindled away, and it allowed for a desertification to take over and kind of changed everything. But back then people used so much of the wood for so much of everything, and you can see in all the old things they talk about having to go to the great cedar forest of Lebanon. Their forest had been depleted where the people were living at, and they had to go to these great elder forests that had been built there that were untouched but getting touched quite a bit, and there's not much of it really left to this day. And of course the climate changed real bad. Furthermore, the origins of the mid-Neolithic populations that did form the basis of modern Europe are also unknown. And this is an elder article then, or they're trying to avoid the fact that we know that it's Proto-Indo-Europeans. The same people that had helped to get India going, China, the Mongols, which ended up backfiring back at us, and so on, were all done by Proto-Indo-Europeans, who ended up being the Europeans of today, but also the ancient Sumerians, and even into Egypt and so on. You can tell that the first farming actually was done by them. That's pulled down out of the Europe and the Catalhoyuk type of area. And so they've even found this. This population moves in around 4,000 to 5,000 BC. See, so it's not 4,500 BC because he's telling you here it's before, but where it came from remains a mystery, as we can't see anything like it in the areas surrounding Europe, he says. And that's not necessarily true. They find it to the east. This is where these people came from and migrated over into. The surprising finds are partially a new study published in this week's issue of the Journal of Nature's Communications that provides the first detailed genetic history of modern Europe. The study shows that relatively recent migrations seem to have had a significant genetic impact on the population of Central Europe. Well, I think we already knew that. The study co-author Spencer Wells, who leads National Geographic's Genographic project, read about Europe's wild men in the National Geographic magazine, and we could do another video on that. Genetic signatures. They talk about in the study, Cooper and his colleagues extracted mitochondrial DNA, which children inherit only from their mothers, and from the teeth and bones of 39 skeletons found in central Germany. The skeletons range from age about 7,500 to 2,500 years ago, or 5,500 BC to 500 BC or so. And the team focused on a group of closely related mitochondrial lineages, mutations in mitochondrial DNA that are similar to one another, known as haplogroup H, which is carried by up to 45% of modern Europeans. And I believe this is one of the key signatures that they found that show you that King Tut, not because his children didn't pass on at all, but King Tut's predecessors are this same haplogroup, and that's how they figured out that there's well over 50% of the modern Europeans have this same odd haplogroup that's mixed in, and then somewhere around Great Britain, it gets up in the 70 range and so on. And they found some guy that had like a 92% match. And he kind of looks a little bit like Edward from the Vampire Kissing movies. There's a picture of him online and stuff, but Cooper and his colleagues focused on haplogroup H because previous studies have indicated the mutations might have been present in Europeans' genetic makeup for several thousand years. It's unclear how this haplogroup became dominant in Europe. Some scientists have proposed that it spread across the continent following a population boom after the end of the last ice age about 12,000 years ago. It's a little later than that it comes out and spreads, but the new data paint a different picture of the genetic foundation of modern Europe. Rather than a single or a few migration events, Europe was occupied several times in waves by different groups from different directions at different times. And I've explained this to you in a lot of my videos that I show you, where there's a migration up through the Levant. You know, whenever it was in the Ice Age, everybody was living much farther south than they were. And so when they spread it up and in, and you go around the Mediterranean and so on and to the east, and this is a huge area swathing all of Europe and Russia and all the way up into China and across to India, down into Persia and so on. So it's a gigantic area that these Proto-Caucasians all lived in and ran through, and this is like the biblical people and stuff. But the new data paint a different picture of the genetic foundation of modern Europe. Rather than a single wave, the first modern humans to reach Europe arrived from Africa about 35 to 40,000 years ago. By about 30,000 years ago, they were widespread through the area while their close cousins, the Neanderthals, disappeared. Hardly any of these early hunter-gatherers carried the H haplogroup in their DNA. Yeah, when they find this first group that's over on these early hunter-gatherers, they find some of them up in Europe that end up matching over to people in Libya and things, and they can see how they've migrated all the way around certain portions of these groups, and perhaps even taking boats at a much earlier time than they had thought, and or going across the Straits of Gibraltar, which is not a great feat, in even a smaller boat, and found those. And we've also found that there are European Caucasians and modern people that actually go back dating farther than this, and they may not have actually had the African origin as close to the time they're talking about here as originally thought, as in some 230,000 years ago these people had come up and spread too. Before the last ice age, there was another ice age before that, and a large gap between each one. And so you're seeing these replications that happen after each ice age and an expanding, but problems, or it seems, and so on. And then another ice age comes in and expanding out of that. And now we have a fairly modern human, but not quite. Then we have the last ice age, and coming through and out of the last ice age, everyone apparently out of that group is a modern human. Whenever we look at ancient haplogroups, Homo sapiens appears to show a modern haplogroups. This haplogroup itself shows up in some of these guys and these Cro-Magnons, and it's really no different than the people that you see today. So modern human seems to go back, or as far as Caucasians go, goes back a lot farther than originally had thought. When I was a kid, again, I tell this in videos, but they tried to get everybody to believe that at 4,000 years ago, we were like rub stick, and it comes to show that no, it goes way back. Now, I've shown things that go back, of course, to Göbekli Tepe and so on, but then there's a gap, and then there's another site called Kamyana Mohila that shows 22,000 BC, and what you would consider a caveman people with a scratch language going on, and they find that it actually correlates to the Sumerians and so on. Anyhow, let's look farther into this here. About 7,500 years ago, during the early Neolithic period, another wave of humans expanded into Europe, this time from the Middle East. They carried their genes, a variant of the H haplogroup, in their minds, knowledge of how to grow and raise crops. And this would have been at least 5,500 BC. This is the starting also of the Sumerians. At about this time, they really can only tag it at about 5,200 BC is the origins of them. Not writing, not the other stuff, but population, them being the Ubaid period and the earlier ones before that led into it. And as they prospered, then it evolved rapidly into people that had beasts of burden, farming, astrology, extensional math, and then that leads into languages and so on. Um, the related story here is Egypt's earliest farming village found, and they found a farming village up in Egypt, showing you one of the first places to do it. The grain from that site, though, comes from Sumeria. It's the emmer wheat and the emmer grains that come from there, and it's another way that they can show that proto to the whole situation, it's the same people that are here, that are there. And then later, what kicks off the earliest dynasties is, again, this migration situation. But that's for another video I have coming up. I'm trying to compile it again for a second time. Archaeologists call these first Central European farmers the linear pottery culture, or LBK. So names for their pottery often had linear decorations. Shortly after this, they have the corded ware group, and it looks like a woven and braided multi-rope type situation, corded ware and stuff. But the genetic evidence shows that the appearance of the LBK farmers and their unique H haplogroups coincided with the dramatic reduction of the U haplogroup, which shows a connection off into North Africa also. The dominant haplogroup among the hunter-gatherers that are living in Europe at that time. Now, farmers moved in, they're showing. The findings settle a long-standing debate among archaeologists, said Wells, who is a National Geographic explorer in residence. Archaeology alone can't determine whether cultural movements, such as a new style of pottery, or in this case farming, were accompanied by the movements of people, Wells said in an email. And this is true. There's a lot of merchants and people trading and doing things, and this confused people for a lot of times. Genetics shows us the reality of the situation. But even in the Phoenicians, for a while they were like, well, these people have these potteries, and these people have both of these. Maybe that's where, well, hold on. Oh, wait, those are the merchants, and they're moving everybody else's pottery around. Okay, all right, so then where are they going? Wow, they're going everywhere with this pottery, and so on. So they found that, these people are spreading knowledge and spreading an early trade. And we all know about the ancient Phoenicians. But in this study, we show that changes in the European archaeological record are accompanied by genetic changes, suggesting that the cultural shifts were accompanied by the migration of people and their DNA. The LBK group and its descendants were very successful and spread quickly across Europe, and they became the first pan-European culture, if you'd like, Cooper said. Given their success, it would be natural to assume that members of the LBK culture were significant genetic ancestors of many of the modern Europeans. So here we have your Proto-European Aryans. But the team's genetic analysis revealed a surprise. About 6,500 years ago in the mid-Neolithic, the LBK culture was itself displaced. Again, I think he's off by 2,000 years. It's not 6,500 years ago, it's 6,500 BC that they got displaced. And then the secondary one was at 4,500 BC or 6,500. But their haplogroup H type suddenly became very rare, and they were subsequently replaced by populations bearing H again, but a different set of haplogroup H variations. So a variation on a theme, where you get a slight variation separated over time and then back together and stuff. If we didn't have so much migration in the United States, you could do this for a few more generations, and you could actually tell the difference between people that were in New York and people that are in California due to what they may have versus they may have. Of course, some of the same people are blending, and that's causing a big problem. Where in this elder situation here, it wouldn't have been that way, right? So the details of this genetic turnover event are murky. Scientists don't know what prompted it or even where the new colonizers came from. I state again, it was mass climate change and problems with the rivers and so on, leading out of the last of the tundra and the permafrost being thawed out, leading onto the mountains that actually do face and exudate water in a southern direction, and don't get close to the Arctic Circle, if you will, right? And where they came from was a little bit more from the east, mending with the people that were already there, right? So The extent or nature of this genetic turnover are not clear, and we don't know how widespread it is, Cooper said. If the turnover were widespread, it could have been prompted by climate change and disease, he said. Well, they've already looked into this more. There are papers that I've even done vids on that are deeper than this in it, but this was supposed to show me something special. So, all we know is that descendants of LBK farmers disappeared from Central Europe around 4500 BC, clearing the way for rise of population from elsewhere with their own unique H signatures. Now there he's got the date correct. Peter Bogucki, an archaeologist at Princeton University who has studied early farming societies in Europe, called the finding really interesting and noted the timing of the genetic turnover is curious. Almost sounds like they asked Spock for his comment. At the end of the 5th millennium, about 4000 BC, there are a lot of changes in the archaeological record, says Buki, who is not involved in the study, but he's a researcher. For example, the long houses that they had, the LBK farmers and their descendants favored, became less common, and the ancient long houses they had, and this shows you a building of houses and stuff that are much more intricate than we were originally thought. I mean, again, we were supposed to be, ugh, rub stick. But no, not necessarily so in any way. The settlement patterns of people living in the Central Europe began changing, as did their stone tools. There are major transformations during this time that haven't really been all that well explained in interior Central Europe, Buckeye explained. It looks like the whole system of agricultural settlement that got established with the LBK ran its course through the 5th millennium, and something caused the people to change. Of course, this is slightly, though, within that haplogroup, but there's a change. And this easily could be a sign of evolution through genetics, just over time of people getting settled in and then it developing over time. And you can see, oh, look, it's like a variation of H. It's a new set. Anyhow, Buckeye agrees that the climate change may have been a trigger for the change in Europe's genetic makeup, but he thinks that it was only a factor and not the sole cause, and I agree, and so do many others. One thing that's clear from the genetic data is that nearly half of modern Europeans can trace their origins back to this mysterious group. At about 4500 BC, you start seeing diversity in composition of genetic signatures that are beginning to look like modern Central Europe, Cooper said. This composition is then modified by subsequent cultures moving in, but it's the first point at which you see something like the modern European genetic makeup in place. So whatever prompted the replacement of the genetic